Oh, good morning. Was it all a big plan? Overnight, we've had news that Prigozhin has agreed in negotiations with the Belarusian president to back down. To the Wagner forces will be retreating. News came out that the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, had negotiations with Yevgeny Prigozhin, and that those negotiations were successful. And Prigozhin has since come out and stated that the Wagner forces will be pulling back from Moscow. It's been a very interesting few hours. In my last video, I talked about a couple of possible scenarios that were going on. Now, I'm just going to refer to some of the great analysis that's come from the Military Summary channel on YouTube. I've got a link below in the description. His insights, he does a daily battle update of the movement on the forces, and his summary of what happened yesterday I think is really good, possibly spot on. He talks through the events that happened yesterday, the way that the Wagner forces moved up over to the Rostov-on-Don area and then north towards Moscow, and were positioned just outside on the outskirts of Moscow. And his summary is that this was a well-planned Russian maneuver, which allowed the Russians to rapidly deploy large numbers of the Wagner forces to take them out of the LPR, DPR region where they were resting, and deploy them to the Belgorod region. So also in what happened yesterday, in some of what happened yesterday, was that the Wagner forces moved from where they were encamped in the LPR region, moved east to Rostov-on-Don, assumed control of the city, but in an unusual way. As it was said, there was no fighting going on. Assumed control, then began to advance north towards Moscow, splitting forces out onto multiple highways, encountering some helicopters along the way, reports of helicopters being shot down. But not great video of that I've seen yet. Also video of what was reportedly a Wagner vehicle being destroyed by Russians. However, the video footage, again, Military Summary does a good analysis of it. Watching the video footage, you can't see any sort of missile strike on the truck. It almost appears as though it may have been done on purpose to give the illusion that there was an attack happening on the Wagner forces. Who knows? I can't corroborate this yet, but it's certainly a very interesting take that this may have been a very well coordinated special op mission by the Russians to allow, in plain sight, for them to deploy the Wagner forces north earlier than their planned August 5th re-engagement, and to have them now just shift west from Moscow to the Belgorod region. Also, similar redeployment of Ramzan Kadyrov Ahkmat forces. They effectively pursued to Rostov-on-Don, the Wagnerians there, and are now able to be rapidly deployed north if they need to be. Also, and this is the real piece of insight that Military Summary provides, is that after this had happened, everyone was confused. The East, the West, everyone around the world. No one knew exactly what was going on. And it took a period of time, it seems, for the Ukrainians to react. But when they did react, what came out was interesting. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced another big wave of attack. So they seem to see this as instability in the Russians and have taken this as an opportunity to announce there will be a big attack coming. In the Kherson region, they advanced and doubled down on their push across the bridge there and moved tanks across, and appear to have now established a sort of small bridgehead there. But most interestingly, in the north, near the Belarusian border, the Glorsky Regiment has released video that they are beginning their operation against the Belarusian forces. So This seems to have been perhaps an overplaying of the hand by the Ukrainian forces in the north, indicating that they're about to go on the attack with the Belarusians because they believe that there is weakness in the Russians at this stage, when this has not been the case. So this will yet to be seen. More will come out about this, but if this is what has happened, then this may well have been a very successful operation on the Russian behalf and has allowed them to understand clearly the Ukrainian tactics in the future as it regards Belarusia. The last thing to be seen is just what will happen to the Minister of Defense for Russia, Sergei Shoigu, the Chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, what will happen to him and what will happen to Prigozhin and Wagner. Now, there have been some reports that in the negotiations held by or managed by Lukashenko with Prigozhin, that the requirements of Wagner forces stepping down, and remember the Wagner forces are substantial, 25,000 specialist military trained, experienced forces, not something to be trifled with. In order for them to step down, it would require that Sergei Shoigu and Valery Gerasimov be moved out of their roles. Now, I haven't got that corroborated yet, but there's some talk of that. It will be interesting to see what happens and how this proceeds over the next few days. Okay, thank you. If you like this, please subscribe to keep up with updates. Talk to you soon.